Hello and welcome to a Handpicked Live channel. And today, Hannah and I are going to be having a little chat about narratives and the narratives that we hold and how that keeps us in our habits and ways of being and really affects what we bring into our lives. For those of you who don't know us, my name's Lianne Campbell, and I'm a life and wellbeing coach, and I specialise in somatic practices. So I'm particularly interested in the sort of recondition process of how we get our stories online with our values, our dreams, our aspirations.
Hello, and I'm Hannah, and I'm a coach. I'm a life coach, a human design specialist, and also an astrologer as well. And the reason we wanted to have this chat today was because we kicked off last night our manifestation experiment within our membership, where we're working with somatic practices for 21 days, really kind of embodying and cultivating the feeling that are aligned with our dreams and intentions. And one thing that came up very consistently in the coaching call that we did last night was everybody being quite stuck in certain old narratives about why they might not be able to move forward and manifest the things they want in their life. And often I think we can kind of get stuck in digging and kind of like unpicking all of our problems and looking back in our childhood and understanding the reasons why we are the way we are. And even though that is absolutely useful and is always part of the process, what we really wanted to have a chat about today is the flip side of that. And Lianne, I love your perspective on this, so I'd really like you to kind of dive a little bit deeper and explain what your thoughts are on this and how we can really use embodiment and kind of looking to the future to kind of help us reprogram those patterns that are keeping us stuck in the past.
Yeah, and like you said last night, the thing that I noticed was this, for everybody, me included, it's like you then have this idea about how you're going to approach the experiment, what it is that you would, you want to shift, what you want to bring in, but underneath, there's a narrative that really needs to be aligned. And one thing that is true is the older the narrative, the deeper it is in the body and the more unconscious it is. And then because we've told it so many times, unconsciously as well, and sometimes it's not as obvious, and that's what I loved about the part where we're sharing, because you can then hear other people's narratives, and then when you speak yourself, often it's that, oh, I've just said, well, what I usually do is, I give up after 3 days, or I'm great at looking after everybody else, but not myself. And then, the discussion that follows, it's a nice way to get into, well, what's underneath that? What's underneath that behavior? Is self-love, self-care, and from there, you can go deeper into, where did this come from? What was the first time I felt this? And it is useful. But I think a really good starting point is, what's happening right now? What language do I use now that gives me really clear clues as to what's holding me back? And then once we start to change the narratives and repeat the narrative and practice the narrative, the new narrative, then we're using the conscious mind to override old patterns. And from my experience, from my own personal experience and experience as a coach, when you start from where you are, and then you really get into that place of, okay, I recognize that I say that, I'm making a choice not to keep repeating that. What's the opposite? Where am I directing my energy? And it's not just a case of, oh, I just say affirmations and then, everything's going to change. It's like, what's the state of being that creates that? Even looking at role models, and okay, that they might have created something that you'd really love to create, or they may hold themselves in a way that you really revere. I wish I had that confidence. I wish that that things seem to come to them easily. They've got a great partner, whatever it is that you see. It's like, well, what's their state of being? How do they speak and act? What's their narrative? What's the story that underpins their experience of life? And I think when we do that, we can start from a place of beginning to strengthen our story, strengthen ourselves, because when we start looking at, when we direct our energy to where we want to go, and when we're looking at the positive, because when you're asking yourself, what does that feel like? How is it to be that already? What if, the fairy godmother has already landed on the bed and it's happened? And as you begin to grow those feelings in your body, and you're also strengthening those neural nets, that every time you rehearse it, every time you tell a story in a different way to somebody that's really empowering, every time you tell that story to yourself, what I've really experienced is very often the so-called problem can just dissolve. And it may have come from quite a traumatic situation. It might, it may and it may not. It might have been a flippant comment that somebody's made, and you've decided that that's the truth and you've taken it on board. But really, no matter what it is, I've found that you can leave it behind. You don't necessarily have to wring out your soul. And I'm not saying that isn't valuable in some cases. But very often what we do is we sort of go down that rabbit hole of the narrative that doesn't work because of what happened. And we dig into that without having a strong foundation of joy and resilience. And once you've got the joy and resilience, two things can happen. Either you don't need to dig, it's gone, or it's certainly a lot lighter and you've pulled the roots up, so it's easier to get to overlay it with a new narrative, because that, in actual fact, that's what we do. We don't get rid of old stories. And really, we don't want to. That it's part of who we are. It's our life story. It's what's made us who we are today. But what we don't want to keep doing is holding it as a negative thing in our lives and so it keeps repeating. So you either, loosen the root a bit so you can let go of that angle that you take on the story. Or, it goes completely. It's just like, okay, that's not important anymore, because the energy in the body that you work with when you're building joy, which it's an energy called the radiant circuits in the body that allow you to feel that expansive feeling, that when they come into play, they've got the power to burst through anything. When we're happy, your immune system's stronger. When you're happy, you're more tolerant with yourself and with others. When you're happy, things just look different. And I'm pretty sure everyone's had that experience of, you lighten up suddenly, or something makes you laugh, or something great comes in, and suddenly those little niggly things are just not that important. Even the big things are not as important, and they're easier to deal with. Mm-hmm. And if we go from there, what's happening today? How can I make small steps to change the story, to expect something different? And you get those small wins along the way of, oh, right, I felt really good today. I really enjoyed that. Or, you got an invite out of the blue, or a small win on the lottery, or whatever it is that just allows you to go, okay, things are changing. There's a different narrative here running the story.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you said about kind of responding to what's present now. And that's a lot of what human design theory teaches as well, is like, we're all uniquely designed to exchange energy with the world. And when we do that in a way that's energetically correct for us, and that is in a way that actually feels good for us, that's how we create flow in our lives. And yes, we hold conditioning, and yes, there are certain beliefs and things that are within our system, or things that we're told in the way that we're supposed to be, or past experiences that have kind of given us, as you were saying, the narrative that we're kind of, and the perspective that we're seeing the world through, and that's creating our reality. And it gives you a really, really clear strategy to kind of use your energy in a way that's correct for you to move forward away from that conditioning. And often it's within responding to what's happening in the moment and exchanging your energy in a way that's correct. And that's the thing that's going to kind of get you to where you need to be. So, you know, the deconditioning work is there, and it, you know, it's helpful. And I think that what I love about human design is it gives you a map. And it helps you to understand, oh, okay, maybe I take conditioning on in this way. How interesting. Then you can start to identify it, bringing it into the light. And sometimes maybe that's all you need. And once you have consciousness around something, you can then take the step forward and actually just use your energy in a way that feels good. And in human design, we also have something called the signature as well. So when you're using your energy in a way that's correct for you, then we often feel that signature emotion. So for certain types, it can be satisfaction, surprise and delight, peace, success. So, you know, that in it's very, very similar, I guess, in what you're saying. But I guess human design just adds a layer of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like personal. You know, when something's personalized for you, that's what I'm trying to say. There's a word for it, but I can't find it. But like bespoke, yes, like a bespoke strategy in the way that you can kind of do that. So, you know, yes, you can kind of use these techniques to change your narrative. And when you have human design layered on top of that, that can give you like a bespoke approach to doing that as well. And then that can also move you through that conditioning that's holding you back.
Yeah, and I really like in human design the languaging around the not self, and you know, in when you're in your flow, because and I think it's useful to see it like that, you know, when you're feeling frustrated or angry, disappointed, it's not your natural. So, and not that those feelings aren't natural, they are, and they're valuable, you know, because they're pointers along the way. But I think we very much in our culture, we can like get really into focusing on what's wrong. I mean, we do generally, you know, our education system, our mainstream news, the social media platforms basically is usually coming through the angle of, you know, don't do this because you don't want to end up like this, rather than, do you know what? How do you build that sense of joy and ease and flow? Because I truly believe when we're in that state, and this is what I, you know, do enjoy about human design, it's like you're using your gifts at that point, you're sharing your strengths, you're naturally cooperative. You know, I really believe that we are born cooperative beings. We want to fit into the tribe, but not fit in as in be conditioned to please other people, but in order to be a valued member with a valuable contribution. And we don't really have that as a basis in our culture, in our institutions. It's not where the top down structure comes from. And I personally feel it's time to bring that back. And I know you know, you agree with this, that it's time to reclaim that your core self, that part of you that is unfettered, that is totally not conditioned by life. And I think even our approach to dealing with stress and trauma can often lead us into focusing on the negative. So rather than, you know, okay, what's the opposite? Where do you want to go? How do you want to feel? How about you just experiment for a while? And what would it be if for a month you just worked with that every day? Just try it and see what happens. And you know, I that's, you know, that's what I love about the platform. It gives us a chance to experiment with these kind of things and then get the feedback. Well, how was it? How are you doing? You know, that problem that you've been stuck with for God knows how many years. Where are you at with that now? Just by, let's just ignore it for a while. Let the grass grow over it. Let's focus on getting really clear about, you know, what you do want, what you want to create. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And always bringing it back to human design.
yeah,
It's like human design is a it's a science of dehomogenization. So what you mentioned there about kind of us all being the same and us all fitting into that structure, I really, really do believe that we're at a time now where it's really important that we're kind of stepping into our own individual gifts and contribution and really making that our contribution to the world. And human design can really, really support us with that. And like you said, kind of focusing on what we have to give and our gifts, our strengths, and that making that a focus can be the best thing you can do in, you know, making a contribution and making a difference. And I think that's something that we can often really, really get stuck in, is that you know, kind of getting lost in like the despair of what's happening in the world and like focusing on all the negative. And oh my gosh, of course there's a place for that. It's really important. It's not about sticking a plaster on a broken leg. However, you know, there is also a time to work with moving forward and kind of looking to the future and focusing on what you want to see, not what you want to not see anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if a broken leg becomes apparent, then you've got the resources and the resilience to deal with it. If you know who you are, you know, often, you know, there's so many of us, we don't really know. We don't know what brings us joy. We've gotten to that place where the conditioning is too deep.
Yeah.
And it's really joyful to start playing with that, get curious and allow yourself that. And I think, you know, I think it happens for a number of reasons. You know, we do have sort of top-down structures for control and systems that are not particularly fair, that we're all a part of. And that's the way I like to see it, is that we create this. You know, there isn't particularly an us and them, but we are all contributing to the society. So when you begin to say, actually, I'm not going there, I'm not going to be inundated with bad news constantly and strong images, because, you know, just how a vision boards works, when you're looking at really strong images of you empowered, of things that you're choosing to bring in, it's very, very different from watching traumatic images. And I'm not saying let's just ignore that and carry on, but checking on how you feel, because if you, personally for me, if I watch the news, I go away feeling completely disempowered. I'm really low or angry or frustrated. And actually, what use is that?
Yeah.
So I'm adding to that. I'm adding to that energy in the world. However, I do want to contribute, and I have got compassion, and I do want to make a difference.
Yeah.
But getting angry and upset about it is, I know definitely for me, there's nothing left. And I do know some people that go, you know, anger is really a useful, and I've experienced that as well. Anger will get me to the point of going, okay, enough, enough. But then, rather than staying here and adding to the fight, if we turn and go, okay, what is it I do want?
Yeah.
Because what you focus on, you get more of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really, really important caveat, and something I wanted to just caveat there as well, is it's not like, oh, focus on everything that's lovely and light and ignore all of the problems in the world. But it's when you're in a state where you are well and you feel like looked after and you feel nourished and you're able to kind of, when your cup is full, then you have something to give, but you also are able to have the impact that you're here to have in the world. And I think that that's something that's so, so, so important. And again, you know, human design can kind of give you an idea of how that, you know, how you energetically are uniquely designed to have an impact in the world. Some people, it's really, really important for them to be sharing their point of view, but in a way that's energetically correct for them to do that. So it's creating the right energetic exchange. And when they're not doing that, then it's just kind of like throwing a tennis ball at the wall and having it smack you back in the face. It's not actually going to create energy and create change. So that's why this is important, because it's not, you know, and it's really not ignoring it. It's absolutely important to stay informed, not to be inundated, but really focusing on your well-being. I do not believe is selfish. I think it's absolutely vital that we're doing that now.
Yeah, because I think the more centered and balanced you are as well, you're not, because often we think we're helping, but actually we're filling a gap, because we need to be the rescuers. We need to feel good about ourselves. So therefore we enable rather than helping. And there is a fine line. And I know, you know, that was certainly a big lesson for me, that of just like, well, where's this line? Who am I really serving here? Is it for the good of, you know, this person or that organization, or is it, you know, is it because I just feel better and it relieves my guilt, or whatever it is. But if you're really coming from that place of strength and love and compassion, and those are really strong, they're strong values that are not valued much in our society. They're often seen as, oh, that's the fluffy stuff, you know, if you're going to talk about love. But actually, it's really hard to stay in love and compassion when you're faced with the images that we're faced with, the you know, the confusion, the uncertainty. And actually, that's when we are in our power and are much more able to make really clear decisions that contribute well. And for me, that's manifesting.
Yeah.
The clearer we get, what we actually do manifest does enrich our lives. And you know, I certainly have had that thing of, I'm manifesting this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and then you go after something, you get it, and it's just a little bit disappointing, or it's like, okay, oh no, it's not that, I'm not whole, let's get on with the next thing. And that's why I think when you get into, why do I want this? What's the feeling? And the beauty of somatic practice is when you begin to work with them more and more, you can have that feeling. You can build that in your body so it's more readily available. And again, what often happens is your dream changes. It's just like, well, actually, I thought I wanted that, but it's not that important anymore, because you've already got that feeling. You've practiced it, and you're coming from a cup that's full and ready to experience more from that place and to give. And that's the other thing as well with it, it's really like, what do you want to give as well? It's not just about, let's just draw it in because I want this. It's like, why? What it is it that you want to feel fulfilled. And when we feel fulfilled, we naturally are in that place that we want to share it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are more generous in every way. We've got more patience. We're kinder. So that's what I love about. I'm really looking forward to the experiment that's starting tomorrow, where every day we're going to build this sense of who do you want to be? What's the upgraded version of you today? And just getting ourselves into that position over the 3 weeks of practicing. You are what you practice. Let's practice, you know, getting ourselves into that place where we are valuable human beings, and we're naturally rippling out positivity and holding a vision for the future that is actually going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, amazing. So if anybody wants to join us for the experiment, it's starting tomorrow, which is the 9th of February 2024. That's going to be starting live. However, it will be available on the platform till the end of March, and it's a 3-week program, so you can join and catch up if you'd like to. So it's going to be 21 days of a somatic practice each day. We're going to also be putting out regular journal prompts, and we'll also have live weekly coaching calls as well. So you can kind of join us, discuss what's happening for you, and also get a real, quite an intimate coaching experience, group coaching experience. This is just a small group of us through this cohort. So we'd love to have you. If you are watching this on Instagram as well, then the link will be in the bio. It's happening inside our membership. So you can join us just for £22 a month there. And I think that's pretty much everything. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to be making this more of a regular thing, these chats, aren't we? So you'll be seeing much more of us, and we'll see you all very soon.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.